There will be times in your life when it appears as if everything is falling apart. When one is exhausted, the body feels a weight of tiredness, the mind is loaded with worry, and the heart bears anguish that appears to have no end in sight. Have you ever pondered whether or not there is anything that is so powerful that it can alleviate all the suffering that the soul experiences? Perhaps the solution can be found in words that were penned many centuries ago, yet continue to have a tremendous resonance even now. There is a psalm that not only speaks about hope, but also holds a promise of chained to him that has passed through centuries, providing calm to people experiencing terrible days. This psalm is not only a collection of nice sentences, as everyone who has experienced the power of this psalm understands. There is an invitation sent to those individuals who have a desire to leave behind fear, uncertainty, and misery. It serves as a reminder that no storm can persist forever, and that light will always come back to illumine the path of those who make the decision to trust. On this day, you will get a comprehensive understanding of the significance of this psalm and the ways in which it might be used in your own life. But before we go into it, let's take a time to reflect. Have you ever had the experience of feeling as if all was lost? Have you ever encountered times when it felt difficult to find a way out? If your response is yes, then this message is for you. This psalm is a call to people who aspire to rise anew. It speaks directly to the hearts of individuals who have suffered long nights, tremendous agony, and times of weakness. But it is also a song of triumph for those who wish to see a new dawn, for those who want for healing, restoration, and strength to continue. Before we continue, a special invitation. If this message reaches your heart, post the following line in the comments: I receive the renewal that this psalm brings to my life. Also, share with someone who needs to hear these words today. Now, take a big breath and ready yourself. Let's analyze each portion of the psalm together and learn why it is so powerful. What maintains a person in the most trying times? When everything around looks unclear and dread becomes a frequent companion. What might provide courage to continue? The solution to this issue has followed mankind for centuries. Faith. It is a foundation that keeps people who have already lost practically everything upright. It is the unseen thread that ties the suffering heart to a hope that cannot be shaken. Throughout history, religion has always been a factor that spurred enormous changes. In periods of crises, wars, and epidemics, it was what kept mankind upright. In 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. made a speech that transformed the path of the battle for civil rights in the United States. He remarked, "With faith, we will be able to transform the discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood." His conviction inspired audiences because faith is not only an abstract idea, but a flame capable of lighting the path of those who chose to believe in the impossible. Did you know that most individuals who view our videos haven't subscribed to the channel yet? If this information is touching your heart and giving value to your life, leave a like and subscribe. This modest act makes all the difference so that we may continue conveying messages of faith and change. Now, let's continue on this trip together. Science also delved into this issue and discovered something startling. People who have faith and practice their spirituality tend to manage better with emotional and physical obstacles. In 2014, a research published by the Journal of the American Medical Association demonstrated that patients who keep a prayer or meditation practice fight diseases with more resilience, displaying lower levels of stress and improved emotional well-being. This leads us to a key point. Faith has healing power, but not simply in the physical sense. It also cures the worn heart, restores a troubled mind, and empowers individuals who no longer feel that it is possible to start afresh. The psalm we are discussing today is not merely a lovely phrase or a simple prayer. It offers a message that was intended for people who need to be revived. David, while creating the song, was not in a moment of glory. He was not surrounded by wealth or living in calm days. He composed these remarks after encountering challenges, after feeling the weight of anguish and uncertainty. Imagine what it meant back then to bear immense loss, undergo persecution, and yet stay fast. David discovered the strength he needed in God. He recognized that even if a night was characterized by sorrow, joy would arrive in the morning. And this lesson is repeated over the years. In the year 2005, following a natural catastrophe that ravaged part of the United States, many individuals lost their homes, their families, and all they had. Hurricane Katrina was one of the worst catastrophes of time, leaving many homeless. In the middle of that spectacle of devastation, a group of survivors gathered to pray. They had lost everything, but they still had one certainty: hope could not be extinguished. Years later, several of them claimed that it was religion that held them steady, that gave them the fortitude to reconstruct everything from start. And that same hope is offered to those who believe. Maybe you are having a time of discouragement. Perhaps you're feeling that your faith is tiny, that life's problems have crushed your confidence. But now, this message comes to you to remind you that faith is not something that fades, but something that may be reignited. If there's a fight being waged in your life, now is the moment to fortify your heart. God never promised an absence of obstacles, but He promised to be on the side of those who believe in Him. Psalm 30 talks of God who saves, who does not forsake, and who always delivers healing at the correct moment. This signifies that it doesn't matter what transpired, so far the tale does not finish in pain. There is a fresh dawn for those who hold true to the promise that God is trustworthy. At this time, I ask you to reflect: what in your life needs to be restored? What portion of your heart needs this hope? Take a deep breath. Feel these words. Let this hope infiltrate your heart. The way we perceive life may dramatically transform the way we tackle issues. When a person decides to develop thankfulness and realize the gifts they have already received, something wonderful occurs. The intellect opens to new possibilities, and the heart strengthens in the face of hardships. But can thankfulness actually improve a life? In 1928, a psychologist called Emmons performed a research that disputed this concept. He collected volunteers and asked them to jot down 3 things they were thankful for every day. After a few weeks, the effects were amazing. People who practiced thankfulness displayed higher mood, lower stress, and greater resilience in the face of adversities. This research not only proved the good influence of thankfulness, but also indicated that it might be a genuine basis for mental and emotional wellness. Now, reflect about your own life. How many times do you find yourself focused exclusively on what is lacking, on the difficulties that have not yet been handled, or on the agony that seems to have no end? It is normal for human beings to have this propensity. Yet there is something powerful about seeing beyond problems and acknowledging what has already been received. Psalm 30 is a hymn that represents this idea. David did not compose these remarks at a time of full contentment. He journeyed through deserts, encountered foes, and suffered through moments of suffering. However, he opted to thank God, realizing that joy always comes to those who stay loyal. This teaches us something valuable. Gratitude is not a transitory sensation, but a daily decision. It is possible to cultivate appreciation even when circumstances may not appear favorable. And when this decision becomes a habit, the heart is filled with lightness, the intellect finds clarity, and hope grows stronger. And the praise, why is it so important? Praising is more than merely singing or reciting wonderful words. Praise implies acknowledging the magnificence of God, regardless of the time we are living. When a person chooses to glorify the name of the Lord, they are expressing that their faith is not dependent just on circumstances, but on who God is. The Bible is filled with occasions where praise precedes amazing miracles. A remarkable example occurred with Paul and Silas, described in the book of Acts. They were wrongfully imprisoned and forced into a chilly, dark cell. Instead of grieving, they opted to worship. In the middle of the night, when they were singing worshipful hymns, an earthquake rocked the prison's foundations and unlocked the cell doors. This exposes a basic spiritual principle. Praise has the ability to dissolve bonds, open avenues, and offer liberty. But does this apply today? The answer is yes. There are innumerable examples of individuals who went through situations of tremendous struggle and found strength in praise. In times of conflict, persecution, and crises, individuals who choose to worship have found calm in the midst of turmoil. And science also recognizes the benefits of this practice. Studies from Duke University show that music and worship stimulate areas of the brain responsible for well-being and emotional resilience. In other words, those who cultivate moments of praise strengthen not only their faith, but also their emotional state. Therefore, an invitation is necessary. Have you recognized the blessings you have already received? Have you chosen to praise even on difficult days? Psalm 30 teaches us that God transforms mourning into joy, that what seems lost can be restored, that the night may be long, but the morning will bring new beginnings. Gratitude opens doors. Praise strengthens the soul, and he who trusts will see the Lord's faithfulness manifesting itself in his story. Life is made of cycles. There are moments of joy, but also periods of pain. No person goes through existence without facing challenges, losses, or disappointments. The big question is, how to overcome suffering without letting yourself be overcome by despair. The history of humanity shows that those who learn to transform pain into learning find a greater purpose in the midst of difficulties. Overcoming doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending they don't exist, but rather developing inner strength to move forward even when everything seems to fall apart. Psalm 30 carries this message powerfully. It teaches that suffering may last for a night, but joy always returns at dawn. This means that no pain is permanent and that God has the power to transform the most difficult situations into testimonies of restoration. Many people throughout history have experienced this truth. In the year 1945, at the end of the Second World War, thousands of prisoners were freed from concentration camps. Among them was Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who had lost his family and faced inhumane conditions. Instead of letting the trauma consume him, he decided to turn his pain into knowledge. His book, Man's Search for Meaning, has become a reference on how to find purpose even in the darkest moments. This same lesson can be applied to anyone's life. Suffering does not need to define who we are, but it can be a springboard for spiritual growth and strengthening. Whether it's an illness, a loss, or a difficult phase, every obstacle can be seen as an invitation to mature. In many moments, God uses difficulties to teach us to depend more on Him, to develop resilience, and to become more compassionate towards those who also suffer. The Apostle Paul is a clear example of this truth. He faced arrests, persecution, and moments of extreme distress. Still, he wrote some of the most encouraging letters in the Bible. In one of his letters, he stated, "When I am weak, then I am strong." This means that when we recognize our limitations and trust in God, we find strengths we previously didn't know existed. Suffering often seems unfair. It can appear without warning, shaking structures that seem firm. However, even in the most difficult times, there is something that never changes: God's care. Stories of overcoming show that faith is one of the main factors that help people move forward. In 2011, a tsunami devastated Japan, leaving thousands homeless. Among the survivors, there were moving accounts of people who, even after losing everything, found strength in prayer and hope for reconstruction. This is the essence of Psalm 30, the certainty that God transforms pain into renewal, despair into hope, and mourning into dance. If this message is making sense to you, take a second to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. This helps a lot to continue bringing content that strengthens faith and inspires so many lives. Let's spread this word of hope together. If you face a difficult time today, remember that this phase is not the end of your story. God doesn't waste any tears. He sees your pain, knows your struggles, and has already prepared a new chapter for your life. Maybe you've already thought about giving up, abandoning dreams, or believing that nothing will change. But this message comes to you to remind you that there is a greater purpose, that God is working behind the scenes, preparing something that you cannot yet see. Overcoming begins the moment you decide to trust. Trust that the storms pass. Trust that the night doesn't last forever. Trust that God is in control, even when everything seems meaningless. Now, reflection. What pain do you want to place in God's hands today? What area of your life needs to be restored? Take a deep breath. Feel this truth invade your heart. God has already begun the work in your life. There is a moment in life when human words are not enough, when pain tightens your chest, when questions seem to have no answers, and when your heart feels overwhelmed. There is only one true refuge: the presence of God. Prayer is that path that leads us directly to Him. It doesn't matter where you are, what you've done, or what your worries are. The moment you close your eyes and decide to open your soul, a connection is formed. Since ancient times, prayer has been the bridge between the divine and the human. Psalm 30 itself teaches us about this power, as it is not only a song of gratitude, but also a sincere cry from someone who recognizes that only God can transform any situation. Science also recognizes the benefits of prayer. A study published by the Journal of Behavioral Medicine revealed that people who pray regularly have lower levels of anxiety and a greater ability to deal with moments of crisis. This happens because prayer is not only a religious practice, but also a tool for emotional and mental balance. But how to strengthen this spiritual connection? First, it is necessary to understand that prayer is not a mechanical ritual. It does not require memorized words or rehearsed phrases. What God desires is a sincere heart, willing to talk to Him truthfully. King David, the author of the psalm, knew this. He did not hesitate to expose his fears, his weaknesses, and his pains before the Lord. He understood that prayer was not just a request, but a relationship. And that same privilege is available to anyone. When a son talks to his father, he doesn't need to mince words. He simply speaks, trusts, and expects to be heard. So it is with God. Prayer has the power to change circumstances, but above all, it transforms those who pray. Even when answers seem to take time, something inside the soul begins to change. Faith becomes stronger, anguish gives way to peace, and the heart finds rest. There are many reports of people who found strength in prayer in the most difficult moments of their lives. During World War II, for example, many soldiers recorded in letters that prayer was what kept them steady amidst the chaos. Even surrounded by uncertainty, they found solace in bending their knees and surrendering their fears to God. And today, that same peace is available to everyone. If prayer is not yet part of your daily life, start slowly. Take a few minutes to talk to God. It can be in the morning, before bed, or any time you feel the need. Over time, this practice will become a constant refuge. If you already have this habit, enhance it even more. Read Psalm 30 aloud. Meditate on each word and allow this truth to infiltrate your heart. Now, unique invitation. Shall we pray together? Close your eyes, and if you choose, recite this prayer in your heart. Lord, I stand here before you. Understand that only in your presence can I feel peace. I know there are tough days, but I trust that your hand supports me. May my faith be refreshed, and may my relationship with you deepen. Teach me to trust, to abandon my anxieties, and rest in your will. If this prayer made sense to you, post in the comments. Today, I place my life in God's hands and trust in His care. God hears every speech, every thought, and every yearning of your heart. Prayer does not need to be flawless, only heartfelt. Every human being, at some time in their lives, has felt that something needed to be repaired. It might be a dream that got lost along the road, a shattered romance, or even a faith that faltered in the face of hardships. But there is one reality that never changes. What looks destroyed may be repaired. What has been shattered may be restored. Restoration is not merely going back to the way things were before. It is a rebirth, a chance to construct something even greater. In Psalm 30, we see God's promise to people who are exhausted, wounded, and without hope. He converts weeping into gladness, clothing those who were disheartened with joy, and offers a fresh beginning to those who thought everything was lost. The Bible is filled with restoration tales. Job, for example, lost all he had: family, property, and health. His agony was tremendous, yet his faith remained steadfast. And at the perfect moment, God not only restored what Job had lost, but also gave him double. This is the ultimate representation of what it means to be restored. But this promise is not only for individuals of the past. Even today, thousands of individuals experience this fresh beginning. In 1995, a guy called John Smith was in a catastrophic vehicle accident. Doctors told he would never walk again. However, inspired by faith and unwavering will, he started a lengthy road of recuperation. A few years later, he not only walked again, but also became a motivational speaker, helping others overcome their obstacles. This tells us something fundamental. Restoration comes when we choose not to give up, when we trust that God still has plans larger than we can conceive. And what is the goal of this restoration? Nothing occurs without a purpose. Every obstacle, every tumble, every scar is part of a broader tale. God not only heals wounds, but also grants meaning to those who chose to go on. Moses is one example of this. He spent years on the run, feeling unable to perform the duty God had given him. But when he eventually embraced his destiny, he became one of the greatest leaders in history, liberating a whole nation from slavery. The same occurs now. Many individuals experience problems and don't understand why, but subsequently discover that each sorrow prepared them for something larger. A doctor who has overcome a major illness becomes more empathic toward his patients. A person who has endured severe grief develops a more empathetic heart. A woman who raised her children alone becomes an inspiration to so many people going through the same hardship. This is all part of the purpose. Maybe you're asking yourself, but what is my purpose? The solution begins with restoration. When God heals your suffering, He also offers a new way. Sometimes that road entails aiding other individuals. In other instances, it simply means living with thankfulness, understanding that each day is a fresh opportunity to make a difference. If you feel like your life needs a new start, realize that this is God's promise to you. He not only restores, but also guides to an even higher destiny than what was lost. Now, an essential question: what needs to be repaired in your life? What do you wish to give into God's hands today? The past does not determine who you are. What has been shattered may be restored. What looks to have come to an end may be a fresh beginning. The trip we have walked together thus far has taught us something essential. No sorrow is forever. No effort is without meaning. And no sorrow comes without God having a bigger intention. Psalm 30 reminds us that the night may be long, but the dawn always provides a fresh beginning. Perhaps during this contemplation, you felt that this message was just what you needed to hear. Perhaps deep in your heart, you already knew that God wanted to speak to you, reminding you of promises that seemed forgotten and kindling a hope that had been lost along the road. And now, after all that has been said, there is a reality that cannot be ignored. Transformation starts with choice. The choice to trust. The choice not to give up. The choice to trust that God can repair what was shattered. Looking at the history of mankind, we find innumerable instances of individuals who overcame unfathomable situations and emerged out of them even stronger. Faith has always been present as a cornerstone of resistance and rebirth. When all looked lost, those who stayed solid in their confidence in the Lord learned that at the perfect moment, aid arrived. And now, that same promise is within your grasp. If there's anything that still troubles you, pass it over. If there's an area in your life that needs repair, trust. If the weight of the past still attempts to hold you back, release it. God has already planned a fresh future, full of hope and completeness. Psalm 30 is not only poetry or a series of nice phrases. It is a live reminder that storms pass, that God's mercy always emerges, and that joy always returns to those who believe in Him. It doesn't matter what's left behind. What truly important is what's to come. Now, one final invitation. Write in the comments, my story is in God's hands, and He is restoring all things. Let it be your declaration of faith. May this be your choice to walk with optimism, knowing that God is already planning something exceptional for your life. And remember, cry may endure a night, but pleasure comes at morning. If this video speaks to your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. This helps us continue delivering life-changing teachings. And if you want to continue on this path of faith and spiritual development, watch the next video that is playing on the screen now. I'm confident it will be a blessing for you. May this truth guide your actions and deepen your faith. May God bless you richly. See you soon.